You know what I don't miss at all? That horrendous week right before my period when I feel like crawling out of my skin and my skin is full of zits, mind you. Yes, PMS hits me hard, but now it's easier to manage with Estro Control by Happy Mammoth. Estro Control contains science-backed herbal extracts that help support hormonal health, especially during PMS. The way it does this is super interesting. The ingredients help support the liver where our hormones are processed, and oftentimes PMS symptoms are caused by hormonal fluctuations. Estro Control is also made specifically for women who are premenopausal, a time when, PMS can turn into a beast. I know this firsthand. So for a limited time, you can get 15% off on your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code DATEABLE at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use the code DATEABLE for 15% off today. Yes, we all know the quality of makeup and skincare products are important, but have you ever thought about how you apply them is even more important for results? Since 2019, Anissa Beauty has been leading the way in creating vegan and cruelty-free makeup and skincare brushes that are safe for your skin and the planet and are designed to optimize the application and absorption of skincare products. Their popular Pinnacle Foundation brush has made such a big difference for me. I used to hate wearing foundation because it always felt so caked on, but with this brush, I can use so little product and it goes on flawlessly due to its patented triangular shape. Anissa Beauty's brushes deliver value and quality like no other. The same goes for their Pinnacle Skin Brush, which has completely changed how I apply skincare. I no longer use my hands to apply my products. Check out the Pinnacle Foundation brush as well as several other amazing brushes at anissabeauty.com and get 30% off site-wide with the code DATEABLE. That's ANISA beauty.com. And don't forget to use the code DATEABLE. Hi, I'm Yue Xu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating insiders.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to Dateable. Hello, friends.
Welcome back to another episode of Dateable.
It's another one of those special episodes where Julie and I will dissect some traps of modern dating. We find these so fun to do because if you know what traps you're falling for, then you know they're a trap, then you know how to get out of them, or we'll show you how to get out of them.
I don't know. I mean, because our book, we have the maze on it, right? For anyone that's seen the cover of our upcoming book that is really coming soon. We're like getting down to like 6 weeks out now, which is wild. But I always think of like, you know, those like little holes when you're in a maze that all of a sudden you just like fall down. I can just like visualize like someone running and just being like, whoop, I'm in.
Yeah. And then being like, fucking A, how did I get here? How do I get out? That is how I feel when I talk about these traps, because in all the traps that we've talked about, this is the last one we're focusing on. I definitely have fallen for all of them. And in hindsight, I realize how easily escapable they were if I knew I was falling for a trap. But at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing.
Yeah, you're just like, this is how it works. This is how dating is. This is how our culture is. You don't actually think about how there is another way, that you don't have to do it that way.
And that is kind of the problem we want to highlight in modern dating, is that we think we just need to survive it, when in fact, surviving these traps just means you're coping with them. You're accepting them. You're giving into them. When we can just rise out of modern dating, which is the premise of our book, is like, let's get out. Let's get out of this whole thing. This whole modern dating culture is a trap, and elevate ourselves out so we can find and create the love lives that we want.
I think when we say that, though, I don't want people to be like, we're saying to not date. Because that definitely isn't it. It's not like, oh, stop dating, don't do any of this. It's looking at things differently. And, you know, I think Yue and I, well, I mean, obviously we reflected a lot about our personal journeys when writing this book, but then looking back at all the daters that we've encountered in our time at Dateable. And there were so many interviews that we did, or just discussions, even with people like in the Facebook group and like through Instagram, that you're just like, oh, they're viewing this differently. They're approaching this differently. that's the way. Like, you don't have to do it like the way that everyone else is doing it. We don't have to be like cogs in a machine, just going on the grind the way that everyone else is.
We're shifting the conversation. Sometimes we get these questions or we talk to our friends and it's about something that's a trap. Instead of playing into it and giving advice around it, we just go, actually, that's not the point.
Right.
You know, like this whole texting thing is a major one. It's like, can you read this text? What do you think I should say back? Normally, if we are playing into the trap, we go, yep, we should say this and you should wait a few hours and you should send it this way, meticulously edit this text back. But now we're basically telling you all, let's shift the conversation. The goal is not to craft the best text back. The goal is for you to manage the anxiety you're feeling right now because you are trying to craft this text message. Recognize that it's a trap. And then how do you make sure that this doesn't happen again in your interactions with this person?
Well, I'm excited to go into it. I really love doing these episodes, and we see that you all do too. We like to track, like, what episodes get more listens. And, we also look at like completion rate. We are analytical. It's funny that, in podcasting, like you do have all these metrics. And it's really fun though, because we can see that these episodes have really resonated for you all. And that gives us a lot of hope that the book will be even more of that. And we are just so delighted by all the amount of people that have been putting in their order numbers, getting their pre-order extras for free. If you haven't heard yet, if you're living under a rock or you're new to Dateable, either way, if you pre-order our book until publication day, which is in January 28th, so this is going to expire at some point, you basically have a bunch of freebies waiting for you.
Free!
We have our modern dating survival guide. We have a guide to navigating dating anxiety, which would be perfect for what you just talked about, Yue.
Yes.
With the texting. And then we have the 25 questions to ask, and those will actually surprise you. We're not telling you to go pepper your date with questions, but we do get this a lot of like, how do I actually like ask the right things over time so I'm making like an informed decision? And we help you out in this guide. And I love this guide because I think it's really important to, have some of this information.
And that's the beauty of these freebies is you get them now. I know so many of you are like, I have to wait till January for the book. So we thought, okay, what can we give to everybody right now that addresses what you may be going through so that when the book comes in January, it's just another great surprise for yourself.
Yeah.
And none of the information is repeated between the freebies and the book. So don't worry, you're not getting repetitive information.
No. And I think even these episodes too, we're setting up the traps we do talk about in the book, but it's really just skimming the surface. This book really, the crux of it is like, okay, now that we know what the problems are with modern dating, what do we do with it? And, Yue and I, like, we're thinking about it, and I feel like we have a hard time saying this.
Yeah.
But I do really think like we have figured it out. Like we have figured out how to make dating work for many people. I'm going to go back to this photo that just stays in my head of our sounding board group that we used to have during the pandemic. They all came to San Francisco. We took this group photo. Like how Facebook will be like, remember this day 5 years ago,
like
or
our
whatever.
10-year anniversary, friendiversary.
Yes. Another example. I do love these though, because that's the point I'm trying to make is you could see how far you've come.
Yeah.
And looking at that photo, I was like, damn, everyone here was struggling with dating back then.
Yeah.
And now everyone in this photo, like 99% of the people here have met someone amazing. Or they're like happy at least with their dating life and viewing it totally different.
Some are even on their second serious relationship. I consider that a win as well. It doesn't mean that you have to be in this forever relationship, but they've been successful, healthy relationships. What we like to say is, yes, everyone's trying to figure it out. We just found a way out. We figured a way out. It's just a way out of this modern dating system so that we don't have to play into the system that was not built for us to find love. Like this is the ultimate trap.
I just think like clearly we all want you to find the right person for you, especially if that's what you're looking for. But I think a huge win, just the last time I was dating, I just wasn't dragged down by the anxiety and the fears and the mental health stuff that came in so strong for me in the past. I was able to not take it nearly as personally and just had a lightness, I think, in the approach. And I don't think that's a surprise to the fact that I met someone during that time. Where in the past, when I was like frantically looking at my phone and, investing in all the wrong people, like things weren't working out the same way. So I do think like even that shift is so instrumental, if nothing else, just so you're happier on a day to day. Like dating wasn't like a slog to me.
Yeah. So we encourage you all to look back every once in a while. It's not just dating. In life, we're always thinking about moving forward and looking into the future. But sometimes you have to know where you came from to understand where you're going. And part of that is I'm going to transition this back to the traps, because if you know what traps that you've fallen for, like I was talking about earlier, and you know which traps you no longer need to fall for, and you know that they're traps. And the last one we really want to talk about is this trap called relationship chicken. We've been mentioning this for a while, actually, on this podcast. And it's this idea that we try to avoid being in a relationship or trying to show our true feelings or to tell someone we even like them, yet we are looking for a relationship. So we're doing all the opposite things, trying to get the thing that we want.
Yeah, like I like to think about it as like a game of chicken, where both people are trying to avoid being the one to surrender first. It's like, I don't want to be the one to show my cards. I don't want to DTR first. I don't want to tell you I like you. I don't want to send that text. But what is that doing for any of us, especially if both parties are doing it? That's when nothing happens. And that is, I think, why everyone's so frustrated with dating, because of relationship chicken in this trap that many daters, us at times as well, were falling into. So really excited to unpack this one today.
So you talked about like the standstill, right? Like if you are falling for this trap, you end up not taking action and you end up not revealing more of yourself because you don't want to be vulnerable. So it goes against what dating could be like. Dating is all about unfolding, unraveling, and letting someone see the true you. But with relationship chicken, we keep building higher walls. And what is the point? So at the end of this game of chicken, what are you trying to do? Is to see who has the highest wall?
Yeah. And I think like when we're all at a standstill and everyone's like, I don't want to be the one to reach out first. I don't want to be the one to initiate plans. I don't want to be the one to text. Then no one is making moves.
Nope.
And that's what we complain about. And also, it's like we want the depth of a relationship, but if we're not vulnerable in putting our hearts in the line and telling someone how we really feel, like we actually can never reach that.
But then we are so starved for connection, but we're not willing to put ourselves out there for connection. So it's disconnection. That's what we're going to get.
Yeah.
We spend more energy trying to play this game of chicken in dating than spending that time being energized by connecting with someone.
It is so confusing to like try to figure people out.
Yeah.
When we're basically getting bat signals nowadays because no one actually will be upfront with their feelings. And I think also it feels like there is no one out there that wants a relationship, even though everyone does. Like all the people we talk to are looking for that. But when you feel like all the people, like no one will commit, no one will do any of the actions required to get there, they're just hedging their bets, playing relationship chicken, but it feels like there's no one good out there.
Right. So then nobody says what they actually want. Nobody says what they actually feel. So end of the day, we all just have these representatives speaking for us in a really inauthentic way, which is completely confusing to everybody around. And we just end up spending our energy on the wrong parts of dating.
So we're excited to get into it today of why we do this, and then also how do we get out of it?
Yeah.
And what this actually means. But first step is awareness. And before we get into it, first of all, go to howtobedateable.com to pre-order that book, because like we said, this is really just skimming the surface. The idea here is that when the book launches, you already understand some of these concepts. So you're ready to take it to the next level. It's not like, for all the listeners here, it's not like, what's relationship chicken? You're like, okay, I get it. I can move in and now be like, how do I rise above it? How do I not do this? And before we get into it, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors.
Cuffing season, or as we like to call fluffing season, is here. Want to add some holiday cheer into the bedroom? Spice up your life with the natural power of cannabis with Via. Via has developed a unique blend of pleasure-enhancing cannabinoids, libido-strengthening herbs, and a medium dose of THC all into one mind-blowing gummy called High Love. And they just dropped their High Love bundle, which includes a pack of gummies and a vape, so you can unlock the full experience at a reasonable price. I am all about these gummies that make me feel oh so good. I tell you, it's the real deal. And if THC isn't for you, you can still take advantage of their CBD line with products designed for sleep, focus, and energy that will keep you glowing all year long. So if you're 21 or older, head to viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off. That's VIIAHEMP.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with High Love from Via Hemp. It feels so great when you can get someone a gift they wouldn't necessarily get for themselves. It's like a little reminder that they're worth it. So for quality gifts at an affordable price, my go-to is Quince. There's something for everyone. And I truly think you can't go wrong with their cashmere line, including their iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at just $50. I actually just got the short sleeve version in brown, and it looks so luxe paired with some white slacks and brown loafers. Hello, rich auntie vibes. And for whatever you're looking for, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They can do this by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, which passes the savings on to you. Gift luxury this holiday season without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/dateable for 365-day returns, plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/dateable to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dateable.
Okay, so why do we play chicken? Why do we do this in the first place?
Because it's a fun game when you're a kid. We do this because I think it's way easier to play a game than it is to actually open ourselves up.
Mm-hmm.
It is the easier choice, right? You're distracted by trying to guess what the other person's next move is when the alternative is to reveal who you are.
Yeah. I also think it is compounded from bad dating advice from a long time ago, the playing it cool. We've been told, especially as hetero women, to play it cool. I think men too, I'd say pretty much across the board. You don't want to come off as too eager or too excited or too interested, that it's been told that it's a turnoff. Or too needy, all the too muches.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been told that, like people want to have the chase and the games and all of that. I think that is not actually what people that want a relationship want.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how we think we go about getting one.
It's just a confusing time. It's a very confusing time. Just like TikTok trends, dating advice changes every few weeks. And I think for a while it was like, tell people that you want to be in a relationship. And then for a long time, it was like, don't tell people you want to be in a relationship, like how to lose a guy in 10 days. You're going to scare someone away. And then now we're back to, let's put your intentions out there, put it on your dating profiles. I think there's a lot of push and pull, and we're just all very confused about what we're supposed to state when we get out there. Like, do we just outright say if we want a relationship, do we just say it?
So I think though it goes deeper than just like saying it, because I think a lot of people have no problem saying on their profile, like, I want a relationship. But the second they meet someone of interest, now the stakes are higher.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like, okay, well, I kind of need to like navigate this. And then I think unconsciously, even some of this stuff that has been ingrained in us for years. So we've been told like, oh, if you send the text, you come off as like thirsty and desperate. And like that isn't actually the case, but like that's been so ingrained in us. So subconsciously, like we think this. Like I remember like a guy friend of mine, like I went on this really great date and I was talking to my guy friend and he was married and he was just like, so you're going to reach out and tell him like how great a time you had? And I'm like, why would I ever do that?
Whoa.
Because I thought like if I disclosed I was interested, like he would become less interested. This was a long time ago. I've now been like, okay, if I want to text someone, I'm going to text them. I don't really believe that anymore. And I think like that actually became so core that I knew I wanted someone that I could just send a text whenever the heck I wanted. So why would I hold that back in dating? But there was that like belief system that was in me that thought that I was doing dating wrong if I was that like forthcoming.
Because there's this like win-lose mentality in dating. We think that if we show our cards first, we lose.
Yeah.
So we try to hold off on showing our cards as long as possible. And somehow when the other person tells us they like us first, it's like, haha,
yeah,
you lose. I have the upper hand. Like, why are you trying to win in this game? Like, is this even a game? I don't understand. But that is how we logically explain what's going on.
It's such a weird state because I mean, eventually I do think you can come out of this. Like, this is probably like maybe the most surface reason that we do relationship chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And with time, it's like, I remember talking to a friend and her kind of telling me about all these like antics she was doing to pull back. And I remember my reaction to her was like, I don't think you want a relationship.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be doing this. But she didn't see it that way at all. She saw it as like this would get her the relationship.
Yeah. We think we need to do this in order to quote unquote trick the other person. Like somehow they're going to wake up one day and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so interested in Yue because she is so hot and cold all the time. That makes it interesting for some reason. I think my perfect example of a relationship chicken is the guy I started seeing in December. This is years and years ago. We started seeing each other in December, and it's that awkward few months because
Yep.
Valentine's Day rolls around and you've been dating for just a few months, and both of us were kind of beating around the bush with it. And he said, let's get dinner next week being Valentine's Day. Here are the options. February 13th, February 14th, or February 15th. Talk about playing chicken. And I said, how about February 13th? Because I was like, I'm not going to let him win. I'm not going to say Valentine's Day. I don't need him on Valentine's Day. So we went out on the 13th, like such a random day, the day before Valentine's Day.
I feel like I've done something like that too. And it was coming from this place of like, I want to look like I have plans.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And I don't want to look like I have nothing going on. But like, why are you trying to prove that if someone's telling you they want to have plans with you?
What are your plans?
Nothing. They're probably sitting at home being upset you're not out with that person.
Right. Like if you're supposedly like dating this person, what other plans could you have that could make the other person feel secure? Right?
So I think people might be like coming into this conversation at various points. Like you might be like, oh yeah, I do this. And you're very conscious and very aware.
Mm-hmm.
You might be saying, I don't do this. And then maybe you need to dig a little deeper. Is there a text that you still haven't answered because they took a while to text you back? Sometimes it's very subconscious. Or maybe you could be like, okay, old self did this and I have outgrown some of these antics and I am a little more authentic. So wherever you are, like meet yourself there.
Mm-hmm.
The point of this isn't to say like you're doing something wrong. It's really just to bring awareness that this has been so ingrained in all of us. And it takes like actually just being conscious to get out of it.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. It's not your fault. You've been falling for the traps like everybody else. You're not doing this maliciously. You wouldn't be doing this if you didn't think it actually benefited you. We're just telling you that it's a trap and it's not benefiting you, but it's not your fault.
The reason I said that, though, it's like when we say it out loud, some of it does sound like so ridiculous. But we have gotten like a lot of these questions in of just like holding back, right? It's like anytime you feel like you're holding back to manipulate a situation, then you are playing relationship chicken.
And you know, it comes from a place of protection.
Totally.
Right? It's all fear-based. I chose February 13th because I didn't want to face that potential rejection that maybe he didn't want to see me on Valentine's Day. We do this push and pull because we think that's the only way to have control over our hearts, and we can preemptively reject someone before they reject us. But end of all of this hoopla, you realize what you're doing is just running away from this person and not actually showing that you want to come closer.
I'm really glad that you pointed out this like fear of losing control, because I think we can all see like the protection mechanism.
Yeah.
But this one maybe isn't as obvious. But this was definitely there. Like, I remember being like, I don't want to be the one to like DTR first, because then if they're not in lockstep with me, then it's out of control. And now it's like the ball's in their court. So if you can be the one that isn't getting rejected, I think there's also like this form of like image management, maybe is a good way to put it, that like I used to be able to say like, oh, they didn't reject me.
Yes.
You know, if you don't do anything, you could never get rejected. But you also could never have a relationship if you don't do anything.
Right. If you're so afraid of being hit by a car and you never leave your house, yes, you won't be hit by a car, but you also can't live life. This is like part of what we're talking about with the love crisis too, is because of so much fear, we are not actually stepping out of our houses, aka our comfort zones, aka getting out there with opening our hearts up, that yes, we don't get hurt, but we're also not experiencing life to the fullest.
I think part of it too is like the fallout of Me Too culture, because now, you know, there was more back in the day, and I'm not saying we should go back here at all, because there's a lot that's very toxic with the dynamics that used to play out, especially in hetero relationships with men and women, where men were the pursuers and women were kind of like the ones leaning back, playing it cool, waiting. But nowadays, no one is making moves at all. So everyone's kind of has that fear getting in their way. Like, I just always think of that conversation that we had with Christine Emba. She was like the columnist for Washington Post. She wrote a book about this. And she was saying like how, you know, like she would talk to guys about like approaching women. They'd be like, I would never, especially in the workplace. Is they're like, now I could be a sexual harasser. And there's just so much like tied into it now of like, I'm going to take a more passive approach to dating. Like we've talked about this before, the stories where someone's like in a bar and instead of just going up to them, they'll like find them on a dating app after.
All the time. We are shrinking ourselves more and more. I think that could be like the biggest danger of all, is that we're taking up less space. We're shrinking ourselves. We're not putting our needs at the forefront in order to get into a relationship. If we're looking at it that way, I hope it makes a lot of sense now. I hope it's abundantly clear to you all now why this is such a dangerous trap and we must get out of it.
And I think it's our dating culture again. We're like, this is where the change needs to start in the dating culture. I will just always go back to this example, but when we talked to your friend Sonica, when she was talking about what she calls the lowest common denominator. Basically, like she is going to succumb to the worst dating behavior because that's the norm. And because other people ghost, now she'll ghost. If other people take 5 days to respond back to a text, she'll take 6 days. And that's like this, it's again, this one upping of who could do the least.
One downing.
Or one downing is a better way to put it. That you never like are the one to be doing more, so you can't be rejected, right? You can always say, I didn't actually put myself out there. That's like the safety card. And I just think in this world, like that isn't a good dating environment for anyone. Like she was talking about how when on dating apps, like if someone give her 10%, she would give them 9%. Like why is that worth even giving any percent to?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good question. But like you said, it's easier to see this when you're not in the situation.
Totally.
And when we put it in this light, it makes a lot of sense. This is a trap. But once you're in it, we totally get it. Your pride, your heart, your emotions, childhood trauma, everything is on the line here. So that's why we get back into our old patterns of behavior, because we know that's always what's gotten us the protection that we needed. But there is a way out, right, Julie? There's a way out. We have a solution.
There is. I do want to point out, though, she was aware that she was doing it. She was fully aware. That was that's like true. The best part of it was that she's like, I'm doing this because that's like what I've been molded to do. There's a lot here, clearly, to unpack. There's a lot of reasons why we do what we do. And yes, a lot of this is coming, though, even if we are aware, it's still coming from the deeper pains associated with relationships. I think maybe actually a reason why this is showing up in dating culture. It's like when you've had all these situations that never turn into more, or you've had all these heartbreaks, or you've had promising dates just peter out, of course you're going to feel like you want to protect yourself more and more. I think the downside, though, is if we go into protection mode, that really doesn't allow us to like open up and give to a relationship. In a relationship, it is all about vulnerability. So if we can't do that in dating, then like we're never going to see that relationship.
That's right.
We're going to get into all of it. But before we do, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. The holiday season is right around the corner, and I know the perfect gift that I will most definitely be giving this year. Osea's limited edition Super Glow Body Set. It includes 3 of Osea's best-selling body care products at an incredible value, packed in a box so beautiful you can skip the wrapping paper. This is gifting made easy. We've said it before on the podcast, but both Yue and I are obsessed with their new Undaria Algae Body Wash, which is part of the set. But all of the products in this set, the body wash, body oil, and body serum, feel like you're taking a luxurious trip to the spa. They just leave your skin feeling silky soft and unbelievably glowing. So maybe while you're at it too, you'll want to grab one for yourself. But hurry before this limited edition sells out. Give the gift of glow this holiday season with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now we have a special discount for our listeners. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with the code DATEABLEPODCAST at OseaMalibu.com.
This holiday season, give the gift that truly keeps on giving. A lifetime membership to Rosetta Stone. It's the perfect gift for anyone looking to learn or improve their language skills. As the trusted expert for 30 years with millions of users and 25 languages offered, Rosetta Stone provides flexible learning so anyone can learn on the go with a mobile app or on their desktop, on their schedule. The lifetime membership has all 25 languages. That's lifetime access for a very special offer for our listeners. Don't put off learning that language. There's no better time than right now to get started. Today, Dateable listeners can get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off. Visit rosettastone.com/today. That's 50% off unlimited access to 25 language courses for the rest of your life. Redeem your 50% off at rosettastone.com/today. Today, for yourself or as a gift that keeps giving.
Let me guess, you have a life and job that you love, but the one thing missing is love itself. If you want to take your dating journey seriously this year, we highly recommend checking out Dating Intentionally wherever you get your podcasts. Dating Intentionally is hosted by Talia Karen, who's on a mission to make dating fun and help you date with confidence. Talia pulls from her own experience going on 180 dates with over 60 people in just 10 months, which ultimately led to her getting married. She's also joined by therapists, coaches, experts, and authors like us. We had a great conversation with Talia on her show all about dating skills you need to find the relationship you want. That's episode 78. If you're looking for practical, no-nonsense advice that you can apply to your dating life today, you can listen to Dating Intentionally on Tuesdays and Fridays on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. How do we not fall for relationship chicken?
Well, one, we already did that, acknowledging that this is a trap and that you've fallen for it. So number one is observing and acknowledging. And then figuring out the root cause for this. I know if I take my example of the day before Valentine's Day example, the root cause is a fear of rejection, a fear of getting hurt because I had gotten hurt before. And also, I didn't want to be disappointed. I didn't want to set myself up for the possibility of us being on a date on Valentine's Day and having it not be something meaningful. So I knew that if we met up the day before, we can both say it was not a big deal because it wasn't Valentine's Day. So I can recognize that now.
I think a big piece for me too was reframing rejection. This was so big. And I do think a lot of relationship chicken comes from fear of rejection. And rejection is such like a natural fear. Of course, no one wants to get rejected. And I just think back to like that episode we did with Exit Interview where Jason, who was our first Exit Interview participant, he basically he was saying that none of his dates worked out, and that's why we did an exit interview. And then we talked to his dates and they were like, actually I was interested in going on another date with him, but I sensed that he wasn't interested.
Right.
And it was just this like cycle of disinterest. And when he heard this, he was like, I was preemptively not reaching out because I just couldn't bear to get that there's no emotional connection text again. And that was so hard to get. I feel like he is now in a happy, healthy relationship. So
He is.
go Jason. But I think for him, hearing that was so key because a lot of times we get in our head, and also outside of just that, he could hear when people didn't see him and it really had nothing to do with him. It was just where they were in life. And if I had looked at it as rejection and a sense of worth and where I was coming from, it would have made me go and play relationship chicken and withdraw. But instead, I embraced rejection. I was like, okay, on to the next. That person wasn't the right person. They're just making room for the right one.
Yeah, it's such a good reframe, looking at rejection as redirection, knowing that it is not personal. Even if it can always be interpreted as personal, you can choose to not interpret it as personal. I think that's the point.
Yes.
And in our book, we talk about rejection therapy as well. Basically, like if you look for the no's, like keep asking questions, hoping for a no, then the word no longer holds that much meaning. It just becomes a word that you hear. And today I actually heard this other way of reframing rejection. This person said, think about when you ask someone for something, you're asking them to play a role in your life. And if they say no, it means they are just not willing to play that role in your life. And I was like, that is also a really interesting, like non-personal way of looking at that too. I think ultimately, we all know rejection sucks because as kids, we did not like hearing no. And that's how we grew up, thinking that no was negative. We have, as adults, we have the power to take that no and spin it and say, it's not a good or bad. It's information.
I think another big piece too with relationship chicken is on the flip side of all this is, let's say you do meet someone you really like and they're great. We want to protect ourselves because we don't want to invest time into them. And then down the line, we uncover some big red flag or some reason why this relationship isn't going to work. So we want to get all the information. We want to make sure we're making the most informed decision possible. We want to date enough people. So when we choose wisely. But all of this, in my opinion, is why we're not in relationships, because we're like looking for everything to line up. You know, I remember talking to like one of our friends who, you know, really was that person that would always be dating multiple people and never really had like a serious long-term relationship. And when she met someone who seemed pretty wonderful, she was like, you know, I'm still not sure. We haven't been dating that long. And I was like, why don't you just try it for a month?
Yes.
Why don't you just try to really get deep and go there with him? And like, you know, because I think if you're seeing him and then 5 other people, you're just spreading yourself too thin and you'll never actually know if it could work with this person. But if you are like, okay, for 1 month, I'm just going to give it my all with this person. And I'm going to have day dates with them. And I'm going to spend weekends together. And I'm going to really ramp up our time getting to know each other and ask more personal questions and all the things that you would do when you're headed towards a relationship. At the end of the month, if you're like, this really isn't working, you can assess and like there'll be more people in the dating pool. Like I think we feel like once we commit, it's forever. But part of it is just seeing if someone's right. But if we never like let someone reveal if they're right, we just like stay in this endless loop.
I think in that example, it's also important to recognize if you are hesitant to be with someone because they're showing you signs of wanting to be in a relationship.
Right.
If you are so used to the toxic behavior of relationship chicken that when someone's actually consistently trying to show you they are interested in being with you, for a lot of us, that scares us away, or that we think that is this love bombing, or we think, oh, this person's boring because they're consistently showing up for me. You also have to observe that too. It's not just about your behavior, but how you interpret other people's behavior. And that 30-day kind of trial for anything is, if you just say nothing from my past applies to the 30 days, I'm actually just going to do everything opposite of what I've done in the past. You don't have to do this forever. It's easier for you to take that in 30-day increments, because then you can say, okay, none of the rules apply. I'm just going to try this relationship. I know it sounds wild, but it's only for 30 days. And then, it doesn't sound as daunting.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. I'm thinking about back to like your experience too, like in your new relationship after the big breakup. Mm-hmm. And part of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't how it felt. It's like if you go through something so traumatic of ending that big relationship, like an instinct could be to just be like, I don't want to go there again.
Yeah.
But if you can put it into these like smaller increments, it doesn't feel as scary or forever. It feels more like manageable of like, I'm going to put myself out there and try with this person, and then we can evaluate. It doesn't need to be just like every decision's made right now, because then just nothing would ever get made.
And you can be really intentional about it. Basically just for the 30 days saying, we're going to go all in, do everything as a couple, do everything a couple would be like, and be like we're in a relationship. This is a simulation of our relationship. Instead of, I think when people are hesitating and playing relationship chicken, they're going, I'm going half in first, testing out the waters. Let's see how things go. And if they prove themselves to be relationship worthy, maybe I'll go a step further. This is just like both people are on the same page, but it's only for a short period of time.
I could hear people saying like, well, I don't want to lead them on. And I think that is a concern that a lot of people have is like, if I'm not sure, I don't want to lead the other person on.
Sure.
But I think we have to remember that dating is a discovery process. It does take time to actually see if someone is compatible. And if you're always hedging your bets and never going all in, like it's just impossible to even get that data in the first place. So I think if you're being open and intentional and honest with the person, then you aren't being like malicious, try to like waste their time. I mean, also, I think we have to think about like what is time wasted. If you spend a month going all in with someone and you learn so much about what you're looking for, even if it doesn't work out, you could also be spending 3 months hedging your bets and seeing them once a week and all this stuff.
Seriously, the time that we waste playing relationship chicken and not collecting actual information about the other person could be much better spent on spending time collecting information.
I think that, and then just showing up as a partner with relationship chicken, with dating, it's so me against you. It's almost like we're, like in this combative place with our dates.
Totally.
It's like who, again, is trying to like win at this relationship. And it's just not a good place if you're always like, I want them to like me more. Like some of that old archaic advice I think is so toxic of just like even being in that mindset to be like trying to make those shifts. Like if we could just come in and be like, I'm going to treat this person like they are a partner, even if it's for an hour. That's just such a different take of against like going in of like me versus you.
Yeah, that kind of dynamic is so hard to start a relationship from because already you're looking for a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
But in a healthy relationship, both people win together. You're in this relationship together. So we always like to think about how can you view even the first couple dates as if you were in a relationship? How would you treat this person? How would you talk to this person? How would you talk about your day if this was your partner? Instead of looking at them as the enemy, what if they're just on your side? Would you still show up with the same, like, I'm going to assess them for 5 minutes and see if they're worth my time, right? Would you show up with the same kind of like, I had a really bad day. Are you going to waste my time too? It's just like the energy we bring is so different if we know that this person is already on your team.
Yeah. I like think back to like the times when I would show up to dates without putting their name in my phone. And my mentality was like, well, I'm probably not going to see them again anyways.
Yes.
Like going into a date that way is so bad. Like I might as well not have shown up. The second I actually started switching that and putting their names in,
yes,
I treated them more with humanity and more as like a person that I assumed would be in my life instead of assuming they wouldn't be in my life.
That's a very different energy that you bring even into the phone.
Right.
Like your phone's like, oh, an actual person. I'm going to prioritize showing you this actual person's text messages.
Yeah. So I think, though, the people that are saying like, oh, I'm not combative or I'm not at like odds with the person, I think I would encourage people to look deeper, because I think even if you're just waiting for them to text you because you don't want to be the one to do it first, that's me versus you. That is combative.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean you're like fighting with your date when you go out with them, but it's the energy of like, if you were in a relationship, you wouldn't sit there and wait for them to text you first. I would hope.
No.
A healthy relationship, you would just text when you wanted to and you tell them what was on your mind. You wouldn't like craft this response that, you know, could win them over.
Even if, let's say, thinking about in a relationship context may be a little scary or too far out there, pair back to a friendship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just think about, how would I treat this person if they are an actual friend?
Right.
Would you still show up in the same combative, like, is there a winner and loser in a friendship?
You would never not put your friend's name into your phone. Ever.
No. Unless they were really annoying. But then they wouldn't be
should be your friend. You would never be like, well, I might not hang with them again, so I'm not going to put them in. That would never happen, ever. And I know I could hear people saying too, like, but friendship, like, you know, you can have multiple friends, or you're not like going on like 5 friend hangs a week. Like, you know, with dating, it's just you have so many people and you need to whittle it down. But I do think this whole mentality of just never giving anyone a real chance is why we keep being in this cycle of just going on more and more and more, instead of actually looking at like what's in front of us and what could develop from that.
Yeah, it's like we think by playing relationship chicken, we can win with the way we set up the dynamic, like I have the upper hand. But the time wasted on creating that dynamic, you could be spending that time with someone who is actually in a healthy dynamic with you, a relationship focused dynamic. An example I can think of, I'm so proud of this, is when I first became single, my friend May was like, I want to introduce you to someone. Do you want to be set up? And I was like, sure, I want to be set up. And we were texting back and forth with this guy, and he was very responsive, very communicative. We had really good banter, but he was away for work and we couldn't find a time to see each other. But he was like, I'll be back next week and let's get together. And then when he was back for the whole week, I didn't hear from him. So I reached out and asked, are you okay, first of all, but can you hang out this weekend? And he said, yeah, either Friday or Saturday will work. Well, the weekend rolls by, nothing from him. I think the old me would have been sad and said, okay, well, he's winning and I'm going to prove that I'm better than this, or I'm going to do something to win him over. Instead, I actually texted him and said, I would even expect my friends to show up for me consistently and to consistently communicate with me. And I'm not getting that from you. So I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah.
Basically, I was like, you can't keep doing this. And the old me may have been dragged along this whole time. But the new me was like, I want to show you what I expect in a relationship. And even in just a texting stage, you can't prove that to me.
Right.
I no longer want to pursue this.
Well, I think once you can recognize the trap of relationship chicken, you don't want to play it anymore. And you don't want to be with people that are playing it. And that's why I'm so excited that we're just skimming the surface here and that we have, you know, a whole book that's going to go into, okay, now that you know these traps, how the heck do we get out? And it's a simple framework. We believe that anyone can do it.
Yeah.
It's actually like maybe easier than playing relationship chicken.
Yeah.
You just have to like rethink of how you're, you know, prioritizing and expending energy. So we're really excited that we're getting to publication date. It's coming soon. So buy yourself that holiday gift.
Treat yourself. I know you probably checked everybody else off your gifting list. Have you bought anything for yourself? This is the ultimate gift.
Yes, it is.
Fabulous. That was the last trap we want to highlight, relationship chicken. Use it freely. We want this word to spread.
Yes.
It's such a good name for it that Julie came up with.
Thank you.
And you can pre-order the book, howtobedateable.com. You can go to our website, dateablepodcast.com, if you want to find information outside the book. You can also follow us on Instagram at dateablepodcast. That's where we're most active, and you can DM us there too. We are very responsive, but if you have to find us on TikTok, you can also a Dateable Podcast. That's like our secret
don't make
account.
fun of our following.
It's like such a joke at this point.
We're trying to publish more. We're a little lacking there.
Yes,
It might
keyword
be
is trying.
an afterthought right this minute,
Yes.
but one day.
And on that, if you feel compelled, like if something moved you in this episode, why don't you give us a rating and review in Apple Podcast, 5 stars, and in the body of your review, you can tell us what moved you, what inspired you, what is a new thought you may have. We like hearing those. And maybe a question you may have. You can ask that in the body of the review as well. Okay, we're going to wrap up this episode. Stay dateable.